Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining today's webinar, Tips for Success, Navigating and Thriving in Your Career Transition, with Executive Career Coach and UCLA alumna, Jane Chongchit Houston. My name is Joseph Blancas, and I serve as an Associate Director for Alumni Career Engagement at the UCLA Alumni Association. In today's program, you will learn tips and strategies on how to prepare for a successful career transition. I wanted to take this opportunity to thank our Alumni Association sustaining donors. It's with your help that we are able to strengthen the brewing community with career programs like this. For some general webinar housekeeping, we will have time at the end of our program for a Q&A with our speaker. So please use the Q&A function below to submit your questions. We will also be recording today's event and we'll send it out once the recording is made available. Now, to start our program, I'm excited to introduce Jane Chongchit Houston. Jane is an executive career coach with a passion for developing leaders at all stages of their careers. With more than 15 years of experience as a U.S. diplomat, she has served at U.S. embassies and consulates across Latin America and Asia. Now as an executive career coach, she is dedicated to partnering with global leaders and young professionals to find career paths that align with their personal values, leadership potential, and professional goals. Jane, so excited to have you here with us. Thank you
Thank
for
you,
being
Joseph.
here. Yeah, I'll turn it over to you.
Great. Thank you very much. Thank you, Joseph, for having me. We've been having this conversation for a long time, so I'm very excited to be part of this group of career coaches. I'm offering you some content on how to thrive in your careers. So a little bit about me before we begin. Like Joseph said, I am a US diplomat. I've been in that role for almost 16 years, and I took a recent career pivot. One of my personal passions is to support people, and coaching was really a great way to do that. So I started my own business, and I'm here coaching clients from around the world in their jobs, in their careers. But this webinar, the topic of this webinar is really important to me because it's something that I've had to do in my many, many roles as a diplomat, which is to work in a new country, come into a new embassy, and I've started from the bottom to leading teams. And I think some of the tools that I've used in all of those different roles can really help anyone. And so my presentation today is really about that. Is what are some takeaways you can take from this hour that you can use no matter where you are in your career. So I'm gonna go ahead and share my slide so that we can start the learning. So um, like I said, I really want to say thank you to all of you for dedicating this hour for your professional and personal growth. From looking at the registration list, I know that you have busy lives. You can do a lot of things in this hour, but you chose to come here and think a little bit more about how to excel in your career. So let's take that seriously. Let's truly dedicate this hour. So if you could put that phone, face down on the desk, close all the different tabs, and really just be open to some new thoughts and ideas right now. So I'm going to give you a few minutes to just do that and get ready to think a little bit more critically about your work. So many of you that I saw who registered might be starting a new job or thinking about a career pivot, or you might be thinking about a promotion. And this webinar is really for anyone in that trajectory. I think every time you have a significant change in your job, you need to think about how am I going to excel in this role? And I'm here to give you some simple tools that you can take away. And I really want you to be open to asking questions, put it in the chat. I'm going to have my email at the end. So you have additional follow-ups you want to talk to me about. I'm happy to answer questions and happy to do so here in our webinar as well. So today's focus, and I've developed this framework to make it easy for you to remember. And the framework is rocks, right? So the thought I have is, can you think, am I rocking in my job? It's grammatically incorrect to say rocks in your job, but hang on with me here. Rocks. These are the four things that I'm going to talk about today. And I really want you to take away this acronym and build it into your work wherever you are. So the first is R for reflect. Today, we're going to take a little bit of time to think about your strengths, your working styles, your career priorities. Then for O, I'm going to ask a few questions to help you think about where you are in your career, but also where your organization is in the industry, what role you play in that organization. So observing is the second part. And the third, I think that really ties it all in, and that is connect. So I'm going to talk a lot about building strong relationships with your supervisor, your peers, your subordinates, and how these connections really lay the foundation for a successful career, no matter where you are in that journey. And the last letter is systematize. And really, this is how do you incorporate all your learning, your reflection, what you're observing at work into a routine? What are the habits that you're putting in place to make sure that what you're learning today and what you're learning every day in your job is something that you can incorporate going forward? So if you could get a pen and a paper ready or open up your notes app, I really want you to just be ready to jot down a few thoughts that come into your mind as I speak. I will have these slides available for you. There'll be a QR code at the end, but as you're listening to this live, I really want you to kind of jot down some of your thoughts as well. So this is a great quote that I use, which is, "It is not in the stars to hold our destiny, but in ourselves." So the fact that you're all here already means that you're thinking critically about, some changes you might be able to make to be better in your jobs. And so we're already starting there. And you'll see the tree everywhere. I love this tree. This is a Scottish oak. I'm actually currently in Scotland. And I love this thought of a tree of having anchors and all the different branches of all the possibilities that are out there for each one of us. So the R, let's start with reflect. And Sarah is online now to help me with some of the poll questions. So when you see them come up, please take a few minutes to type in your answers, and you can also write it on your piece of paper. So we're going to start with the first of the model, which is reflect. So the question I'm asking you first is, what am I good at? And I want you to think about this in terms of your work. Right, so that's the first question. And what I have on screen are just some suggestions. Are you great at marketing? Are you good at strategizing, solving problems? When somebody comes to you, to your cubicle, or sends you an email, do they say, "Hey, Jack, I really need your help with this because you're great at X." What is that X that people normally say to you? So I'm just going to give a couple of seconds here for you to think about it and put in, what are you good at in your job? Okay. And moving on, sorry. Let me see. The second question is, this is kind of a reflection on where you are in your career journey, right? What stage am I in my career? And I put the ages here just as a guide. Normally, as you're coming out of university, you're usually in your exploration mode. You're starting new jobs, you're changing jobs, every 2 to 3 years. So you're in the exploration mode, trying to find what works best for you. And then once you hit your 30s and 40s, you're starting to consolidate. You're really figuring out what you're good at and what you like. Or you picked a company and you're kind of like staying here for a while. And then stage 3 is the focus and the crossroads. And I saw a lot of questions related to this, which is, I've been in this job for a while and I'm ready for a pivot. So this is a stage where a lot of my clients are in. They're really reflecting on whether they should be here or not. So you might be there. And the fourth is expertise. This is kind of your gearing up towards possible retirement or doing something completely new. And this is where you've combined all your expertise. So where are you in your career? All right. And the next one is, this job is valuable to me because. And if you could just take a few minutes to kind of write down. And this is something that, to be really honest with yourself, right? It's valuable to me because it pays the rent. It's valuable to me because from this job, I can get that next job. And I think that is kind of the why question of why you're doing the things that you're doing 9 to 5. And it's important to have that written down so that you know why it's valuable to you. It's providing for my family. It's inspiring to me to work in this industry, whatever that is. I'm going to give you a minute to think about that. And the last question is a learning one. The skills I want to develop are, because I think in everything that we do, to be open to that learning is really important. So whether you're a CEO or you're just starting in a new job, what is it that you're trying to develop in yourself? Is it presentation skills? Is how to better manage work-life balance? Is it learning from a boss or a peer who is an amazing superstar? What are the skills that they have that you're looking to develop? And that's it. Those are my 4 reflective questions. And I hope you'll take those away, have them written down. And this is to kind of just give you a foundation for why you're in the job you're in, where you are in that career, and what your strengths are. And when you do email me, I'm going to send you some additional resources of, some tests you can take. A lot of people take the Myers-Briggs or different personality tests, and that all helps serve in knowing yourself better. So if maybe we can stop the poll. So I still see it on my screen. Oh, there we go. Thank you. All right. And I'm going to give a little bit of homework right now to all of you. And my homework is to create a work with me document. I'm not sure if people have heard of this before, but it's something that's becoming very, very popular, especially for leaders in new organizations, is to really understand yourself, right? What is my preferred communication style? Am I an email person? Am I a DM? Do I Slack all day long? When you go to meetings, how do you like to run those meetings? How do you like them to be run? And I think knowing these things about yourself really set you apart from folks who don't have a clear understanding of that communication style that is innate to you. And I think the last one is, what do I bring to this role? And I think that's important in any projects that you might take on. You really want to know, hey, I'm going to take that on because I love planning or I love coming up with new ideas. So that's always in the back of your mind. So this is why the reflection piece always comes first in my rocks model. All right, so my main takeaway is, for this part, know what you want from a job and where it is in your career trajectory. Okay. And now we're going to move on to observe. This is the O in our rocks, right? This part is, I think, also really critical, that we think about where we are in our workplace and really are open to observing what is happening around us. And I love this quote, which is, how we spend our days is, of course, how we spend our lives. And as adults, we spend a lot of time at work. So are we truly listening to what's happening in the industry? Is there a shift there? Is something happening with our boss that we're noticing that's coming out in meetings or in his or her interaction. So this observation part is really important in being successful in your jobs. So the first thing I would recommend for everyone is to just have a moment. Think about your company culture. And this is especially important when you first start any job, any new position, even if you're moving up or sideways in the same organization, right? What is the communication style for our organization? Do we just email everyone? Do we always have meetings every Monday? What is it how do we communicate, right? What's the power structure? And what kind of company are we? Are we a startup? Are we expanding? Are we sustaining success? We have a great product. We just want to keep it running, keep it selling. Where are we? And then what's really important also is, how is good work recognized? When I ace this project, is it recognized? And if so, how? And how do I recognize other people's great work? And the second part is, then once you've observed all of those things, how are you building credibility and adding value? Right? Do you understand what you're being asked to do? Do you have everything you need? What are the things that we're trying to solve for here? And then if there's issues with certain projects or a meeting, are we communicating as an organization to understand why? So I think this is part of the observation, to really be thoughtful about the communication and then the reflection part as you're going through your day, your week. And I love the number 5, which is, what is the company proud of? And I think understanding that can really help you see your work from a bigger perspective, right? The reason why our company is here is because we create this for our clients. And knowing that, I think, helps set the foundation for everything that you do. So for the observed takeaways, I just have 4 things. And this is something, if you want to screenshot this, I really think this is something that's really important, which is, you want to observe and ask questions. You're starting something new, or you're working on a project for a long time. You just want to step back and say, hey, I just want to be clear on the purpose of what we're doing. And then you want to take initiative. And again, that's about taking your strengths and using it to your advantage. I'll take on that role, thank you, because that's what I like to do, and I can do that in a week, whatever it is. And this part, the log and track your work. I cannot emphasize that enough. I have a lot of coaching clients who are ready to move on to a new career, a new industry, and you forget all the different projects you've done throughout your career. You need to be writing those down and tracking them so that you can put it in your resume, put it in the next interview questions, have those examples ready. So do that on a regular basis. And then the last is feedback. That's really important. Once a project is done, can you go to your peers and supervisors and say, hey, that seemed great. Can you tell me how we could have done that better? That bit of feedback is really helpful. And when you first come into a job, this is where all of those questions are most important. You send something out to your team, maybe you start your one-on-ones, and ask for feedback actively, right? You say, is that the type of information that's useful for you? What more could I have given there? And I think that feedback culture is really important. You learn, and then they also learn that you're open to improvements and changes. All right, we're already on our 3rd one, which is the C, connect. And this is, I think, probably the most important one of them all, because your connection with people around you, people outside of work, is really what's going to make you thrive anywhere you are. And this quote I always think about, which is, the quality of your life ultimately depends on the quality of your relationships. Yeah, so how much fun you're having at work, the great connections that you're having with your peers, your colleagues, your client, really does impact people's moods, and something that you really should cultivate. So the first one is the organizational connections, right? Are you having weekly meetings with your supervisor? What are those like? Are you just reporting out? Are they just telling you what's wrong? How do you change those so that they're beneficial to both of you? Peers. I really think this is a neglected group of people because sometimes there's some competition there. Everybody wants to get promoted, but there's a lot to learn. I don't think there's any organization in which there's not enough work to go around. So share, learn from one another. And I think having those strong friendships laterally really will help you in your career. And again, people you're supervising, are you helping them to develop? And also your clients. What's the big perspective here? Is the client really impressed with your work? And all of these connections that you're doing in your organization will help you in your next role. A supervisor might then go on to a next company and say, hey, I remember you, Jimmy, you were amazing. You want to come work for me? And you having built that foundation for that relationship is really going to pay off here. And then the second one is your support network. I put coach first because as a coach, I think it is really a helpful relationship to have, someone to help you set those goals and get you to where you want to go. A mentor is somebody that the way I choose a mentor is I find somebody that I admire because of the attributes and also because of their career journey that they've given. I want somebody that can give me advice, but also has great work-life balance or just seems really happy in their job. That's a great mentor to me. And then friends and family, that is key. If you're not also building and maintaining those relationships, everything else will be really tough. So just keep in mind how you're structuring your day so that you're providing and building on these important relationships. Okay, so my takeaways for the Connect, these are the top 4 things I say make a great team. Right? You're building trust. When you're coming into an organization or you've been in an organization for a long time, you can tell right away if there's a lot of trust. Can somebody trust me to do my part of this work? Can I trust you to do your part? Do we have clear communication? Am I being clear in my emails asking for some help? And what's the purpose of why we're doing this or taking this on or making changes to this marketing plan? Right. And also understanding the organization's values. So I think when we talk about connecting at work, these 4 things really help us build that strong team. All right. And my last one is systematize. So this is the rocks, the S in my rock. So this is building really strong habits. And I've watched a lot of these UCLA webinars, and everyone says this, which is you really do need to put some strong habits in place. So I cannot recommend highly enough the James Clear book, Atomic Habits. And I love this quote from him, which is, you do not rise to the levels of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems. And this is true in anything, right? So let's take our C, the connections. If you have a system in place in which you are cultivating your relationships with your peers, your supervisors, when your company falls under, or you get laid off, you can connect back to your former supervisor and maybe there'll be a job there for you. So you just want to have these systems in place so that it will catch you when you fall. So here is a great coaching question that I took from another coach. And a question that I think I've been thinking about a lot recently, which is, how have I been complicit in creating the conditions I say I don't want? And this is a reflection of this great book, which is the 15 Commitments of Conscious Leadership. And it's the thought of what's by me versus to me, right? And this is why you're here in this webinar, because you're thinking of what can I do to continue to thrive in my career? What can I do to get a great job? So you are by me trying to make it work. So these are some reflective questions. What did I do well this week? What can I change? Why do I want changes? Am I being open and curious? Am I committed to learning? These are some weekly reflections that you can do that help put the rocks in place to solidify your career. So my recommendation for you is to create a weekly system for continuous reflection. So every week, and this is what I'm going to ask everyone to do at the end of this webinar, this is the main takeaway, which is put 10 minutes on Friday, 2 days from now, 10 minutes to just reflect. What are the top things I did this week that I was proud of? What's something that I didn't have a chance to do but will do next time? And then what are some adjustments that I can make next week to make sure that I get done what I'm planning to do? So do that once a week, every Friday for 10 minutes. And I'm telling you, this habit will help you just calm down in terms of getting your work done and just giving you a little bit of clarity for the week ahead and then for the year. And then once a month, if you can do this, if not once a quarter, but again, put it in your calendar and have maybe a buddy, someone that you can say, hey, I'm going to do my reflection for the quarter. You want to hear about it? Can I talk to you about it? And I think this zoom out is really important as well, because sometimes we don't stop and reflect. And so the questions I invite you to ask yourself is, what's important in my life? Is this job still the thing that I want? And if not, how do I make changes? Am I giving back? Is there still a balance in my life when I come home or when I shut my laptop at the end of the day? Can I take a breath and now focus on my family, on my friends? And if I can't, are my boundaries being broken here? And how do I make changes to get that to be stronger? So what is my next step? So that's my challenge to you, is to zoom out once a month if you can, once a quarter if that's possible, or even at the end of the year, right? Is to put in place this time to reflect. Okay, takeaways. Be clear in your communication. Know what's expected of you, what's important to yourself, to your organization, and own and solve your problems. This is my last slide, which is basically what we just finished talking about, which is reflect, observe, connect, and systematize. Yeah, I think this is it, right? Know what you want from your job, commit to listen, being curious, get those relationships strong and healthy at work and at home. And then 10 minutes. I put Monday because that's when I do it, but it could be a Friday. But systematize and create in that habit of reflecting, and reflect on your goals and your progress, and then think about what changes you can make if there needs to be any change. All right. And this quote made me feel a little bit better. It says, what if you measured success by the efforts you put in rather than the results you achieve? And I think this is important because sometimes you can't always predict your result. It's dependent on other people, whatever else might be in the way. But what you do each day and the effort you put in, you can definitely control. So let's measure our success by that. These are my resources. I will email them to you if you fill out the form. These are the books that I love. I love the podcast, How to Be Awesome at Your Job. I recommend it to everyone. But yeah, some great learning from all of these books. And a lot of it is incorporated in my presentation today. So I'm going to give you a few minutes. This is my slide. And if you fill out this QR code, and hopefully I just did it, and I'm going to do it one more time with you here. I think you can fill out the form. Anyway, this form is closed. Sorry, guys. I'm going to ask Joseph to send this out again to everyone. But anyway, that is my email. Please email me if you want the slides, and I will send the slides to you. Okay. And if you're interested in coaching, I'm gonna give 50% off for folks who sign up, who've watched this webinar, who are here today. I'd love to meet with you. Happy to chat. This QR code links directly to my calendar. Set up an appointment. I'm here to support you and help you thrive. And if you have questions about US diplomacy, happy to answer those questions too. So thank you very much to Joseph and Sarah for helping me with the webinar, and I'm here to answer questions.
Great. Thank you so much, Jane. And I appreciate you sharing out some of those resources that you utilize for your presentation. I was able to capture a couple of them
Oh,
via
great.
Amazon for the books, but we'll be sure to get the other list of books and podcasts out to attendees, as well as the link for them to access your slides. I really
Awesome.
love your note about kind of leading with curiosity. I hear that so much, and it's something that I think has rang true and has benefited me in my own professional development. So I always love when I hear that from other coaches. We're going to transition to Q&A with Jane. So while we do that, per usual, we're going to throw into the chat a link to our post-program feedback survey. So for anyone who is sticking around and has a couple minutes to fill out that survey, that would be helpful. We are starting to plan next year's slate of programs and webinars. And so your feedback on future sessions and topics would be helpful in us deciding on what's to come from our Career Coaches Network. And then if you have any questions for Jane, please use the Q&A function below to submit those, and we will get through them, time permitting. We also captured questions via registration. So Jane, I know that you took a look at those questions. Anything you'd want to address just starting off?
Sure, I can I'll go ahead and take the question that's already in the Q&A
Okay.
first. And then I can move on to some of the questions that came with the registration. So the first one is um, if you're in your 50s and noted as expertise, the world is moving so fast and you can easily get obsolete. Um, I get that. And I think that is why hopefully my rocks uh, model really should help you think about where you could find mentors or figure out where your current skills can help in a different industry. So I don't know if there was a question there, but I do think that what is really important is that first part of the R, which is reflecting on what your skill sets are, and then seeing how that can be pertained to any industry that you might be interested in. And I see a question from Jeff Spencer here. Have you noticed that any of the rocks categories are more challenging when making a mid-career change? That's a great question. And I think the part that becomes harder is definitely the O, which is the observe, right? When you get higher up in your career, you think you know a lot, which is probably true. You've had a lot of experience, been in a lot of different organizations. And so you go into a new organization and already you're like, I think I know how to make changes here. I'm just going to do what I did in my last organization. And I think if you don't stop to reflect and to observe what's happening in that organization, sometimes the things that you're proposing might not work as well. And that the book that I had mentioned, which is the 90 days, I'm forgetting the title, but it's very popular, that 90 days book. We'll put it in the resources later, but it's really helpful in trying to think about the first wins that you can do when you start in a new organization, and observing is really important.
The first 90 days.
First 90 days. That's it. Thank you, Joseph. All right. So I'm going to now move to, if that's okay with you, Joseph, just to kind of answer some questions that came in the registration that I thought I could group them together. And I think the first one is one that we touched on a little bit already, which is changes in mid-career and career pivots. Um, and I really think this is something that I see a lot in my clients. There's something about the current job you're in, or maybe you were just out for family reasons and are coming back in and you're trying to assess what your skill sets are. And I would first say the UCLA alumni webinars, there's a ton of coaches that touch on this exact topic. So I would start you there. But I would also say use my model, which is to reflect on what you're good at, and then on the connections part. Reach out to former colleagues, mentors, LinkedIn, friends of your cousin, whatever it is, and build those connections and then see where you go from there. But have those clear systems in place so that you're making connections to look for that next job. Let's see. And there was a question, I think, about advocating for yourself as a young professional. And when should you find something new? I think this is something that I see a lot of new foreign service officers coming in, right? They want to make an impact right away. I've got a lot of enthusiasm, and I think that's awesome. And I think I said this in one of the slides, which was keeping track of your wins and asking for feedback. And I think that's a really important part of being new in any job is, are you doing something well? And then are you keeping track of that for your supervisors so that they're recognizing you? Joseph, is there anything that you think I should touch on?
No, we're getting some questions coming in live, so maybe we could switch back to some of these. Um, the first one was, what advice do you have for someone making a career transition between two different industries? I know that this comes up a lot. For example, going from science into experiential design or UX research. With such a large discrepancy between the two, it seems tough to utilize transferable skills when there's some technical knowledge needed as well.
Yeah. I think that you're right. This is really hard. And I think one of the things that is really helpful here is looking for mentors, to help you in the new industry. And then also what I talked about, clear communication with asking for the resources that you need.
Mhm.
If you've already been hired or they're interested in hiring you, well, then I think you need to be really open about, I want to do a great job here. What other additional training can I have? Is there somebody who's already working on this project that I can have a half an hour with to really learn from him or her? I think be really open about what you need and then open to learning.
Yeah,
Um,
I was gonna
yeah.
say, I think you said, utilizing your network and, you know, having informational interviews with these individuals and figuring out what would kind of set me apart, or what is it that I can learn, or what are resources that might be free or that I can take advantage of that will give me some of that technical knowledge that they might be lacking. So there's a bit of a learning curve, I would imagine, given the huge discrepancy, but I don't think that it's impossible.
Definitely. That's a great
Um,
point.
Peter asked, what advice would you have for someone who left mid-career, for example, to focus on childcare, but wants to re-enter the workforce in their 40s or 50s?
Great question. Thank you, Peter. I think that is something that a lot of people are facing. And again, this is back to reflecting on what you did prior to stepping out of the workforce, and then maybe some things that you did while you were out in the workforce, PTA, whatever it was, that you can put into your resume. But I think it's actually a great new start. You're coming in fresh. You now are clear on what your priorities are at home, what you want to get out of your work. Maybe you don't want a 40-hour work, you want 30. Whatever it is, I think you have the space to be more clear about what you want. Um, Yeah, so I would again utilize your networks to see what opportunities are out there. There's actually a great webinar on this UCLA career that talks specifically about that topic.
Thank you.
Mhm.
This was another one, more so about being laid off and struggling to, secure a role after continuous applications, um, and have had to hide the full story of out of fear or judgment. Any personal experience or recommendations on how to overcome this in your job search?
Yeah, I've worked with a couple of clients who are really struggling here to get a job, and you're right, it's a slog out there. And I really think that right now, what has seemed to have worked is really, again, those connections. And LinkedIn, I know that sometimes it's that cold call, right? Asking for that informational interview. And if this person who asked me this question sends me an email, I'm going to send them specific podcasts that I've sent to my clients about how to effectively ask for informational interviews that then maybe help you to have that connection first before you're sending that application in cold. Um, but yeah, I hear you. It is tough, and it's not just you. There's lots of people going through this, and I think there are more tools out there that we can connect with people to try to land them that job.
Mhm. And I think, sometimes there are nuances to, applying to jobs and going through the job search, and um coaches like Jane could help, you know, figure out what you could do differently that could maybe get you that interview or that phone call. So I wouldn't I would say try to consider a coach. They could probably help. I just want to point out, Cleve, in response to one of the anonymous questions that came in about, transitioning to different industries, he's letting you know that he could potentially offer you some insight. So if you want to connect with Cleve,
Love
um,
it.
he's throwing
Amazing.
his info into into the Q&A.
Look at that. We're
Thank you,
connecting
Cleve.
people already.
Look at the network, the power of the Bruin network. I'm loving it. We have a question from Fernando. I think that systematizing is one of the key things because it is easy to get carried away with the everyday routine. I agree. I'm good at starting systematizing, but have difficulty continuing after a while. Any suggestions how to tackle this challenge?
Well, soldages to Fernando as well. I want to say, Fernando, that I also struggle with this. And I think the best way, at least for me to do this, is to have a partner. I think I talked about this before, but I have um, like a work peer. Um, I wish it was you, Fernando, that we could, every Friday you take your 10 minutes at your desk, I take 10 minutes at my desk, and we both just reflect. And I think having somebody to keep you accountable is really helpful. But again, I really recommend that book, the James Clear Atomic Habits. I think one of the things that he says is think about, the identity of the person you want to be. And when you think about that rather than the small steps, and thinking about the identity of a person who reflects on their job, is always observing and creating new habits, it comes a little bit easier. So thanks for that question.
Great. We have another question. Would the rocks framework and lessons work for improving the productivity and teamwork within existing teams?
I think so. I mean, I really do think that in a team, if we have a conversation about what is our goal here? What are our strengths as a team? And do a kind of a group reflection and group observation is, are we as a team here? How are we in the bigger organization? Kind of just using that framework. Um, I think it really could help. I know I've used it mostly for myself, but I love Ellie's question because I do think that it
Hmm.
can really work as a larger team.
Yeah, I can see how parts of it could benefit.
For
especially if you're thinking about the team's overall goal.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Yeah.
Um, Great. Well, we've gotten through all the questions that have been submitted. So any
Mhm.
final thoughts, words of wisdom that you'd
Mhm.
like to share out to those?
Ooh, this question.
I love it. Seems like a big question. We got another question. Thoughts on how to find your calling, purpose, ikigai?
Oof, this, I feel like we need a whole webinar. You and
Yeah.
I, Joseph, we're gonna have to do like a podcast on this specific one. Your purpose and calling. I think this is something that it's about the reflection piece. It's that journaling, it's trying to figure out, is this job the right one for me? And if it isn't, why not? And then what do I do next? I don't think I have a short answer for that at all, but I do think working with a coach really does help with that. A lot of the clients that come to me is like, I don't know what should I do next, but I know I'm not happy here. And maybe that's the starting point. So if you're not happy here, what is it about that job, that industry that's not making you happy? So yeah, I would start there.
We got some more questions coming in. Any advice on transitioning to a different team when current dynamics aren't working? This person likes their employer and likes working for them, but are not happy with their current work colleagues.
Mm.
And I know that that can be pretty frustrating.
Yes, that is tough. And I think this for me, I would go first with clear communications, right? If you like your employer, maybe there's some advocates that you have within that organization. Is it HR? Is it supervisor? Or is it a different peer in a different project? What is it that you need for things to change? Um, and then if the dynamics aren't working, I think you really need to be clear also on what is it about it that's not working. Is it because there's misaligned expectations? So I would go using the framework with the observation first, right? Like what is happening here that I'm just struggling with so much. Um, but yeah, I think there's room here to make changes. And if you like the employer, I think that's something that you should say to your employer. I want to stay in this job, but this dynamic is not working. Saying this exact thing, but then finding the person to say it to.
Mhm.
That's really key.
Another question we received was, how do you feel about writing and sharing objectives and key results for your role before you start to get clarity and alignment with your new manager?
I like it. And I
Yeah,
also and I also love, Joseph, that you are saying out all the acronyms. That is lovely.
I actually Googled it really fast. Because I was like, I think I
Couldn't
know
even
what this
tell.
means, but I need to make sure.
I love it. That is a key podcaster quality there. Yeah, I this is really kind of the homework that I'd mentioned earlier, the work with me document is really helpful to a new manager to know how to work with you because they want to benefit from your talents and expertise as well. So if you say to them, "Hey, boss, after 6, I will not answer emails. That is my communication style because I've got other things going on, but I'll be back online at 8. If you really need me, call me." That's really helpful, right? And then this is what I'm really good at. This is what I'm going to struggle at, and I will need more support here. I think that is helpful. If I was a boss for this person coming in, I'd say, wow, thank you for sharing this with me. Now we have a baseline, and I didn't have to learn that for the first 3 months of us working together. So, yeah, I'm all
Yeah.
about it
No, I definitely think that, that communication and transparency will only benefit you.
for sure. For sure.
Great. Well, we keep getting through these questions, so thank you so much for,
You're welcome.
giving us time to answer these questions. I know everyone's situation is so different and can really vary. So I know that those who attend our webinars do value, your experience and expertise and what you what you've experienced with clients. So really appreciate that.
Great. Thank you so much for inviting me, Joseph. It was a pleasure to share and give me a lot to think about too in terms of how to be successful as I move back into the public service realm. But still, coaching will be part of that journey.
No,
So
it was no, thank you. And it was great having you. I think that, you know, everything that you shared are such great takeaways. And so I'm excited to share out what you've shared today to those who registered and attended. So thank you. Um, but before we close out, I do want to, as always, highlight our Brew and Promise website. There will be a link in the chat. The Brew and Promise website is a website full of different opportunities that you can take advantage of as a UCLA community member, alum, student, with different tools and resources that will help you advance in your careers and just different pathways. So those who are attending, please take advantage of that website. And then we have our final Career Coaches Insights webinar taking place next month. The final one for this year. It's impactful communication going beyond words. And so I think it actually goes pretty well with your session, Jane, really focusing on how you can really benefit from communicating with others, whether that be peers or, you know, supervisors or what have you. It's taking place on Wednesday, November 13th at noon. You can register today. But with that, again, Jane, thank you so much for your time this evening. I know it's late in the evening for you, early afternoon for us. So appreciate you again. And those who joined, thank you for doing so. Go Bruins.
go Bruins. Thank you, Joseph. Thank you, everyone, for being here.